Hello, Mary Brownlee, licensed professional counselor. It's so good to see all of you again today. Today, we'll be going over the similarities between our abusive or narcissistic families and cults. So, there is definitely an overlap. And the reason why I would like to point out some of these similarities is because a lot of these dynamics are not only responsible for the complex post traumatic stress disorder that survivors get, but also, things like stripping us of our identity, our ability to trust ourselves, our ability to believe in ourselves, for example. So, yeah, there's some real damaging dynamics that abusive families and cults share in common. So, I thought I'd go over those today. There's about 14 similarities, and then I'll talk about at the end of the video the opposite. For example, so healthy families, what healthy families do right that is not similar to cults. And also, just kind of tie it all together and how this, again, really impacts our identity, self worth, belief in ourselves, able to have like agency or ability to be motivated and have goals and set dreams in our lives. So, a lot of this is tied together. And as always, if you enjoy my videos, please drop a like, subscribe. Your support is so much appreciated. All right, without further ado, I'll get right into it. All right, number one, they can come off as very nice to other people outside of the family or the cult. Yes. So this is something a lot of people, outsiders, for example, who did not grow up directly inside of our families, for example, might have absolutely no idea that any of these dynamics are going on, right? They might see the abusive mother or father as a wonderful human being who adds wonderful things into the community, because narcissists and abusers and cult leaders are very good at pretending to be one thing to gain additional support, gain additional followers. They're very good at pretending to be somebody they're not. So they are going to come across as friendly and agreeable, or just very nice, or very spiritual, or yeah. And so the outsiders are not going to have any clue that these type of dynamics are going on, because a lot of these are kind of hidden behind closed doors. Number two, authoritarianism with no accountability. So yes, not only are they very controlling, you're going to see authoritarian type of parenting strategies in families that are very similar to cults. Authoritarianism is basically low warmth and empathy and high control. So really what we're looking at are parents who control their children through abuse, like screaming and yelling, and physical abuse and shaming and criticizing and neglect and all of that. So there's not really any positive feedback. There's not warmth going on. It's really damaging and controlling and fear-inducing. So yeah, families and cults share those similar qualities if they're doing those type of behaviors. And again, no accountability. So it's not like there's accountability for the cult leader. There's no accountability for the narcissistic or abusive parent. They get to do damage without really any accountability. Number three, no tolerance for questions or critical inquiry. Yes. So again, firsthand, if you're the truth teller in your family system, not only was there no accountability for the abuser, but oftentimes you were ousted, you were shunned. So that's going to happen both in cults and in our abusive families, that if you try to bring light into what is going on inside of the family, you're going to be ousted. So yes. There's absolutely zero tolerance for questions, dialogue, really wanting to understand the problems and work them out. Again, this is not like a one-on-one healthy relationship where you can sit down and have just a simple conversation about any concern or problem that might be happening. You can't. There's some major control and fear and domination tactics happening. So it's not like survivors can speak out. And, this really, I think, is something that is so vastly important to point out, how this alienates us from ourselves. So cults and narcissistic and abusive families both have in common this quality that, because the control and abuse tactics are so high, it literally splits us off from our authentic self, right? So this ties into my video of internal family systems therapy, where we talk about self-leadership and being self-led. We can't be self-led. We can't be in touch with our authentic self, because again, There's no tolerance for differences. There's no tolerance for questions. There's no tolerance for any type of, you have to fall in line basically. And in order to do that, you have to shut down your authentic self just to survive in the family. So again, it's going to split you off from who you authentically really are. And so you'll lose touch with who you really are, which is, I think, part of the most damaging thing that can happen from families like this. There's no discussions of problems either. So yeah, as I mentioned, it's not like you can actually sit down and have a healthy one-on-one dialogue with anybody. Communication is not fostered, and problems never get resolved. It's just layers and layers and layers of resentments and grudges and anger and hurt, and no one is ever actually talking about what actually is occurring. So you get no resolution. There's no discussion of problems. There's no resolutions. There's no respect between members where you can sit down and have a one-on-one dialogue. People don't do that. Instead, it's just like fall back in line or you're out. Ooh, number 4, secret keeping with like finances or feelings or communication. So lots of secret keeping. They're going to hold information from you. They're not going to let you in on what is actually going on. So you get the sense as a child growing up in these families that there is some sort of what I call like rug sweeping, where, problems are just kind of swept under the rug. Nobody actually ever deals with them or talks about them. But there's also secret keeping with like finances, secret keeping with like feelings and emotions especially. No one talks about feelings. So again, if no one in our families is talking about emotions, how the heck can we begin to understand ourselves? We know we're feeling bad. We know we're feeling scared or hurt or angry, but we can't talk about those with anybody in the family. We have to hold that all inside because again, safety is not established. We can't actually get resolution for any of the hurt that's happening. This is very problematic. This is, I think, probably one of the main reasons why nobody has a close relationship in a family like this. The communication is just completely absent. Open, authentic, real communication is just it's not there. Number 5, unreasonable fear of the outside world. So how cults and narcissistic families, this dynamic comes into play when, for example, you'll see parents that are very afraid of having their kids interact maybe with other kids, or they keep them home too much, or they isolate them from, their friends. So it's more like you just depend on us and your family and ignore those other people. Those other people are bad. We don't associate with them. So yeah, sometimes those dynamics can show up in abusive families. Number 6, people who leave are evil, wrong, or negative. Oh yes. So if you do happen to escape the family cult, you'll know firsthand what that feels like. It's the smear campaign, right? So the narcissistic smear campaign, which I've touched upon in some of my other videos. Yeah, you will be framed as the most evil, vile, terrible, hateful, mentally ill, crazy, overly sensitive, you name it. There's going to be some label that they put on you, but definitely what's going to be labeled is that you're the wrong one and you're bad and you're evil, and make sure that the rest of the family stays away from you. Because again, right, if they actually address the problems in the family, people would have to be held accountable. Nobody's going to be held accountable in a cult-like family system, and nobody's going to actually work on themselves because they're not in touch with their authentic self. So yeah, you got to go. You got to go because you're upsetting the whole dynamic, the status quo, as I like to say. So yeah, that's another similarity. Number 7, followers are never good enough. Oh yes, if you know, you know. So yeah, this is another one of those so common in abusive and narcissistic families that children will grow up to be young adults and even much older adults. I have people who are in their 50s and 60s and beyond who still feel like they are never, ever good enough for their families or their parents. So this is that incredibly damaging dynamic that anybody from an abusive or narcissistic family can relate to, is never feeling good enough. And as I tell my clients, you could be like an MD, you could be a lawyer, you could be a NASA astronaut, for goodness sake. It won't matter. You are never good enough to your family. They don't care how high achieving you are. They're going to tear you down. They're going to have labels on you. You're going to be put in that scapegoat role, and it just doesn't matter. They'll never accept you for who you really are, or no matter how successful you are. So yeah, really, you can't do anything right. And so that's the gist of this particular one. Yes, number 8, the group leader is always right. Oh, yes. So this is another one too. Again, whoever is really in charge or in control, they hold absolute control. They are always right. Everyone else is always wrong. So again, how can you dialogue with family members who think they are always right? You can't. You can't. So this is, again, it's about control. I remember when it first occurred to me that I needed to stop communicating or trying to have a relationship with people who fundamentally were not seeking connection. They didn't want to connect with me on a human level. They didn't want it. So I had to realize they want something totally different. They have some sort of agenda, and they want to get that agenda done. My feelings and needs and thoughts and perceptions were not important to them. They were not seeking to connect one person and another person at a heart level. So yeah, in abusive and narcissistic families, it's about control. It is not about connection. And number 9, the group or leader is the only one who knows the truth. Yes, isn't this a fun one? No. Yeah, so again, they're the only arbiters of truth, of reality, of what's right, of what's wrong. You and your own unique thoughts, perceptions, feelings, etc. Nobody cares about those. You're dumb, you're too stupid, you're too sensitive, you're crazy, whatever, the labels will continue, but they're the only ones that are right, and you were always wrong. So yeah, you'll always be feeling like not only are you not ever good enough, but that nothing you do is right either. So you're just darned if you do and darned if you don't. This is a lose-lose situation, which again is why a lot of us end up going no contact. There's not a darn thing you can do to try to make these people happy or to have a real genuine connection with them. It is impossible. Yeah, so number 10, questions are considered persecution. Yeah, so if you actually do try to resolve some sort of conflict or some sort of concern that's going on, they're going to see that as like, you're coming at me and you're the one that's wanting to fight and you're the one that's creating problems. You're the one that's responsible for all of this distress in the family. When you just have some questions, you're like, I'm trying to understand this. I don't get why this is happening. Can we please just talk? Can we please just sit down one-on-one? I have questions. I just want to talk about this. No. Again, that's going to be seen as an attack on them, and that's going to be shut down very quickly. So they are not going to tolerate that either. And again, a lot of these, I wanted to point out too, this is why we're losing trust in ourselves, right? So this is like, gaslighting and having your reality undermined. What you are seeing with your own eyes and experiencing with your own eyes is constantly being told is wrong, that you're wrong, you're too stupid, you're too sensitive, you're crazy, and that they're right. So this is how, again, complex PTSD, right? It is altering our perceptions of ourselves. It's altering our perceptions of the world. It's gaslighting. It's emotional and psychological abuse. We can't even figure out who the heck we are anymore with these type of dynamics going on. And you are absolutely going to lose trust in your own perceptions and your own gut intuition and your own wisdom. And so a lot about what, I do with my clients is restoring their sense of trust in themselves, their sense of trust in their own wisdom that they absolutely still have contact with, that maybe they've just kind of split off because it wasn't safe to trust themselves. It wasn't safe to love themselves and to just be themselves, right? That break from authentic self is completely shut down. So yeah, this is one of those wounds that we deeply work on when we come from these type of families. All right, I'm going to turn my paper over. Number 11, no one thinks independently. So the group or leader is looked to for answers. Oh yes, your independent thoughts, feelings, perceptions, etc. Again, nobody cares about those. The only persons whose thoughts, feelings, perceptions, etc. matter is the group or the leader. No one cares about your individual thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. So it's very much groupthink, That's how the group forms this very tight identity, this very tight idea of what is real and what is appropriate and what is reality. And if you don't go along with what their reality is, you're out. you're out. So there's no tolerance whatsoever for any differences. Everybody must conform. Number 12, a loss of spontaneity and humor. I can relate to this one very deeply too. Notice that people who have high narcissistic traits do not really have a genuine sense of humor. They may enjoy making fun of people and that, like that hostile humor and the mockery type of humor, but they can't laugh at themselves. They can't just enjoy a good joke and look over at you and connect. Oh, that was funny. I know, I love that. Oh, again, no connection. There's no genuine connection with other people. So they use humor at other people's expense, yes, but not actually laughing with you at something that's genuinely funny. Again, they've lost touch with a lot of their own authentic, normal, healthy child parts. And so they don't have access to these genuine, internal parts related to humor and joy and connection and safety and exploration and playfulness, right? They don't have access to those. So yeah, you're going to see really, they're not going to be very spontaneous. They're not going to have a genuine sense of humor that connects to other people. It's sad. It's sad. It's not really living. It's not really living, right? You lose access to spontaneity and humor and joy and connection. Are you even really alive? I don't call that living. I don't. Number 13, anything the group or leader does can be justified no matter how harmful. Oh, yes. Yes. I can relate to this one as well. So when they harm us through whatever number of abusive behaviors they do, it will always be justified. They're always right. We're always wrong. And if we received any sort of harmful behaviors, we deserved it. We deserved it. If only we had gone along with what the group said or did, then we would have been fine. But no, we just had to have our own thoughts, feelings, and perceptions and needs, which is selfish to them. That's selfish to have your own thoughts, feelings, needs, and perceptions. How dare you make it all about you? That's selfish. You're the one that's always making it about you by having some thoughts, feelings, and needs that are different than ours. So yeah, again, that differences are not tolerated. And again, they're going to follow what the group leader or narcissistic parent wants them to do. So this is we see this a lot with the scapegoating and golden child dynamics too, right? The golden child or other siblings that at least are not being actively abused, they're going to try to fall into line behind the narcissistic parent because they know if they go against the narcissistic parent or whoever the main narcissist in the group is, they will be ousted as well. So there is absolute safety and conformity, codependence, looking the other way, ignoring abuse, etc. Because again, they know, people in the family know, if I also stand up to the abuser, I'm out. And that is threatening to us as human beings. We were meant to grow up in a tight social network, and shunning, again, is like a death to us. That hits us very, very hard, even on a brain level, to be shunned. It's very damaging to us. So most human beings will do whatever they can to not be shunned by the group. And then 14, once we're ousted or shunned, contact with that person is avoided. So this is where not only will you see the smear campaigns, where they're telling the world that the victim is the problem and wrong and crazy and all that, right? There goes the lies and the smear campaign to make us, the person who has been ousted, look like the terrible person. But it also is they're going to avoid any contact with us. So you will, I can relate to this, and so can many of my clients, where you lose relationships with the entire family. Maybe you didn't even have any conflict whatsoever with cousins, aunts, or uncles or anything. And all of a sudden, they're like avoiding you like the plague. Or sometimes they'll reach out on the narcissist's behalf, and you can tell that the smear campaign has worked because they believe what has been said about you, carte blanche, without even asking you, hey, what is going on? This is what I'm hearing. Are you okay? What's going on? Healthy people can look through a smear campaign and go, something is off here. I don't think so. No, again, we've talked about in my other videos, right? Generational trauma, the whole family usually has quite a degree of dysfunction. And so a lot of these dynamics go through the entire family tree. So it's very easy to see that the whole tree has been poisoned, for example. And so again, when we go no contact for our own safety and well-being, oftentimes we lose contact with the entire extended family. Once in a while, you'll see, relatively healthy family members can see through some of these behaviors, and a person will have an ally maybe in an extended family member, but oftentimes not. We'll have to cut ties with the entire family. As I like to say, the whole tree is poisoned, and it has been poisoned, again, generational trauma, for generations. It's almost impossible to try to find someone in the tree who you can genuinely connect and feel safe with, which is incredibly sad. Incredibly sad. So yeah, in other videos, I'll talk about what we can do when we do lose everybody in the family. Like, how do you go throughout life without people to love you and to feel safe with? And you can. We call that building a family of choice. So there are loving, safe people out there that we can replace our family with. It's not exactly the easiest thing in the world coming from our abuse history, but it's possible. So I'll talk more about that in other videos too. So now we come to the part of the video where I talk about, okay, we just found out how cults and narcissistic and abusive families operate very, very similarly, and how they destroy our sense of self and trust in ourselves and make it impossible to form meaningful connections. Okay, so what do healthy families do differently? How are they different? I'm so glad you asked. So here are a few things that healthy families do differently that unfortunately those of us from abusive families didn't have access to. All right, so dialogue is valued and communication is open. So in healthy families, problems are not seen as insurmountable. Little disagreements are not seen as horrifying. People just deal with it. They deal with it when it comes up, and they deal with it with respectful dialogue, one-on-one. Problems are cleared very easily because people generally love one another. They genuinely want to connect with one another. It's very easy to dialogue about anything that might come up. And then instead of rug sweeping and, 50 years of resentments piled up, they're gone. It's like, I apologize. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Thank you. I appreciate your apology. It won't happen again. People are accountable. They will just apologize. It's easy to, nobody, in other words, it's not like shame is at a level 10 out of 10. People can actually apologize and realize that it's not the end of the world. No big deal. I love you. I want to be deeply connected to you. I don't want you hurting. It's easy for them. People can admit mistakes. Yeah, exactly. It's not the end of the world. None of us are perfect. And so in healthy families, we don't expect perfection. We don't expect perfection. We understand people have flaws and all. No one's perfect. And it's easy to admit a mistake and apologize. It's no big deal. And nobody's going to be, punished for admitting a wrong either. It's safe to actually admit a wrong. I apologize. I was out of line. Please forgive me. No problem. Thank you for apologizing. Yeah. So members want to deeply connect. They don't want to have hurt feelings between them for very long. Self-esteem and autonomy is valued. Yeah. So in healthy families, it's understood that each person is an autonomous person. They are their own independent person with their own thoughts and feelings and needs and perceptions that may be different from other members of the family. And that's okay. And nobody's threatened by that. And healthy members want each other to have healthy self-esteem and a healthy identity and a sense of trust in themselves. They want this deeply. They have it and they want it in other people. Boundaries are respected. So yes, say you do have a specific need or feeling that you wish to be respected by other members of the family, you can ask kindly and they will respect that. And it's not like World War III. I always tell my clients, your first red flag that you're dealing with an abusive person or a controlling or domineering or narcissistic person is if you tell them, no, that doesn't work for me, or please don't talk to me like that, etc. You put a boundary down and they react with rage. That is your first clue you're dealing with a very disordered person. Normal people, you ask nicely, you put a boundary down, they go, oh, of course, no problem, I totally understand. Unhealthy people can't do that. Decision-making is shared. So yes, decision-making is shared. So in healthy families, again, it's not just one person that holds the monopoly on all the choices and what's going on in the family. One person doesn't hold all the power. It's shared. It's shared. There's dialogues and collaboration between all members. All members' needs and thoughts and feelings are respected. People generally care what each other think and feel. So power is shared. Nobody wants power over. They want power with. They want power with. And I love the idea of empowering others and having power with others. You want to lift them up. You're not trying to bring them down and put them beneath you. And the last one is that questions are answered without being punitive. So yeah, you can actually freely ask questions. It's safe to do so. Members understand that there's differences, so they're not threatened by questions. It's like, absolutely, sit down. I'm happy to try to explain that to you. So yeah, I hope that this has been helpful for you to not only maybe possibly get some validation for some of those cult-like behaviors going on in your own families. Feel free to drop a comment if any of the things I went over today hit a nerve, or you were like, oh, I totally can relate to that. But also feel free to comment on any of the healthy family behaviors too. Did any of you experience that? If so, thank goodness, you deserve that. I'm so happy. But those of us who grew up in narcissistic or abusive families are very much like closed systems. They're very cult-like. And yeah, I found it very validating when I first learned the similarities between cults and abusive or narcissistic families. It goes to show that you're not crazy. None of us are crazy. We were seeing it. And again, we kind of need to see and hear information like this so that we know we're not the crazy ones. You're not the crazy one. You were seeing it correctly the whole time. And there's a reason, again, these families that are abusive and cult-like diminish free thought. Because again, if you think for yourself, you are a danger to the group's ability to control members. So free thinking and free thought is going to be very negatively frowned upon. So yeah, I hope my video was helpful for you. Please do feel free to leave a comment, leave a like. Your support is so appreciated on my channel. I look forward to making more videos like this. And as always, so much love to all of you, and I will see you again in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.